I hope that you're having a great Labor Day. And in a minute, I'm going to talk about a very serious topic, which is the degree to which the rigged economy that has grown up over the last generation has really become a huge problem, something I'll be writing about a lot in my newsletter, which you can get for free at gingrichproductions.com. And I think this whole issue of the rigged economy, where some people are getting special deals and the rest of us are paying for those special deals, is something you're going to see explode in the campaign this fall. It was something which Bernie Sanders talked about a lot, something Donald Trump's been talking about a lot, and there's more and more evidence that the economy is rigged. But before I get into that serious topic, I just want to report that Clifton and I went to the National Zoo today. It was a tremendous trip. We really had a great time. The crowd was enormous. People there, particularly families, children, some of them very young, in strollers, having a great time. The weather was perfect. Clifton got a great picture of the youngest panda, which was just sitting there eating its bamboo, having a good time. Pandas, because bamboo has so little nutrition, pandas eat bamboo for up to 16 hours a day. We also got a magnificent picture of the male lion with that full mane. It was a remarkable moment and just great. And the zoo, by the way, has had tremendous work done to make it more educational, more enjoyable, more diverse. And if you haven't been to the National Zoo, if you come to Washington, you should really block in some time. They've done a marvelous job taking a 125-year-old institution and really revitalizing it and making it very, very exciting. Now, having said that, and so I do hope sometime you'll take a moment. And by the way, while you're back home, go to your local zoo. As you know, I'm a big fan. Zoos are a great place for children, great place for families. They're safe. The kids get to be outside and run around and get tired. They learn a little bit about nature and about animals. And it's very educational, very enjoyable experience. So, let me brief you a little bit on where we're going on this concept of the rigged economy, because we've done a lot of research on it, really beginning with 2008 and the financial crisis. I was very disturbed by the way in which the big banks, who were at the heart of the crisis, were responsible for the bad behavior, had put all of the world economy at risk. And yet they somehow ended up as the winners. They got a Dodd-Frank bill written which crippled their competitors. They themselves are protected. They went from being too big to fail to being even bigger. They have all sorts of sweetheart deals with the Federal Reserve. And the more I looked at how things had worked in 2008, the more troubled I was by how the Federal Reserve has been working and the degree to which it's a secret institution. In a free society, no one should have the level of power that the Federal Reserve has without transparency, without accountability, without detailed congressional review. And yet the Federal Reserve controls trillions of dollars, makes money literally, and decides the amount of money available as liquidity, decides the interest rates, or at least tries to, cuts sweetheart deals with big banks, and has presided over policies where there's $1 billion a year secret consumer organization that is a bureaucracy run by bureaucrats for bureaucrats with no congressional accountability, no congressional appropriations, something which would have seemed to the founding fathers to be an absolute, total, complete absurdity. Furthermore, we need a very vigorous national debate, both about the current banking regulations, which have had the perverse effect of making life much harder for small financial institutions. If you're a community bank, you can't afford all the paperwork and all the lawyers that the red tape is building up. If you're a local small savings and loan, or credit union rather, you can't afford all of these costs. Yet the big banks both get special deals on money deposited with them by the Federal Reserve, and they have the size that allows them to have all of the computer equipment, all of the lawyers, all of the red tape, all of the clerks, so they can get bigger and bigger while the rest of us are more and more in their shadow, with them winning and the rest of us losing. I think you have to look at the Federal Reserve's own policies, the degree to which its monetary policy has been totally wrong. They followed a model in which they thought if they could only drive down interest rates, which, by the way, hurts every saver in America. If you are, as my mother-in-law is, somebody who saved all your life, and you were counting in your retirement years on a decent interest rate, 4 or 5%, which at one time would have seemed very normal. Now you're down at a 0.5% or 1% for your certificates of deposit, and you're wondering what happened. Well, what happened is called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has built an enormous bias in favor of borrowers against savers, exactly the opposite of the world that the Constitution was written for. The Constitution was written by people who understood the importance of property in having freedom, the importance of the right of individuals to pursue happiness, which they originally wrote as the right to private property, and then shifted to the pursuit of happiness as a more moralistic term. But the fact was, all of the founding fathers believed that a stable, healthy, free society started with private property rights, the rule of law, judges who were accountable to the public, not to the king, and in that process, they believed that you had to have a bias in favor of paying your bills and a bias against anybody having the right to write off debt, which is why the Constitution specifically says that the debt cannot be revoked. The fact is that we have to recognize that what we've seen with the inflationary policies of the Federal Reserve, with their willingness to have extraordinarily low interest rates, has been the opposite of what all of the founding fathers, not just Alexander Hamilton, who now has a musical, but Thomas Jefferson, who was his political opponent, but who believed that the right to private property was the very essence of being free. The Federal Reserve has turned out, I think, to be a very dangerous institution. We're going to spend time over the next few weeks, both in our discussions with you in Facebook Live and in the newsletters, and in a series of other articles I'm going to write, really laying out how this became a rigged economy, who it's rigged in favor of, how the rigging works, and why we should demand that we have fundamental, profound reform, starting with the Federal Reserve, starting with an audit of the Federal Reserve, starting with transparency for who gets the money, how do they get it, starting with going all the way back to 2007 and 2008, how were these deals cut, who was in the room, who were the winners and the losers, why did some folks win and other folks lose, and where are they today? And I think you're going to find this extraordinarily educational. And at the same time, it's fascinating that both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump have talked about a rigged economy. Both have said the American people are being ripped off by the way the current system works. I've come to conclude that they're exactly right. I don't agree with some of Bernie Sanders' solutions, but I think his core analysis is correct, that Hillary Clinton is the candidate of the rigging. And this is why the corruption of the Clinton Foundation makes perfect sense. If you believe in a rigged world, if you believe in the big boys taking care of each other, if you believe in billion-dollar deals, why wouldn't you take care of Bill Clinton? Why wouldn't you take care of Hillary Clinton? It's precisely the kind of corruption which guarantees that the rigged economy will get worse, that the rigging will become even more against normal everyday people. And analyzing how this is working will teach all of us a lot about what's happened to the middle class, why 25 million people have dropped out of middle class status, and the scale and depth of the reforms we're going to need to get back to a high growth economy where everybody has a chance to succeed. One final point. If this economy is rigged in general, and it is, it's particularly rigged against African Americans, Latinos, and other folks who are trying to rise, because it is precisely the rules and regulations, precisely the tax codes, that inhibit the growth of new entrepreneurs. If we really wanted to recover from the banks being too big to fail, we'd have made it easy for local black entrepreneurs to open up a community bank. We'd have made it easy for neighborhoods to create credit unions where they could come together and do what we did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. We know how to do this. It's not being done because the big boys and their big lobbyists have been blocking it. And I think this is a time to let's have a head-on conversation. And the groups that will gain the most are minority groups who currently find it very hard to rise as entrepreneurs. They find it very hard to acquire wealth. And they are, frankly, the most trapped by the rigged economy. So I hope over the next few weeks you'll take a look at what we're going to be saying in our newsletters, which you can get for free by signing up at gingrichproductions.com. I hope you'll feel free to communicate with us about the concept of the rigged economy. I hope you'll watch our various Facebook Live conversations, both from me, but also we're going to bring in some experts to talk about it. And I think this is a topic which in the next 60 days is going to become very important in the presidential campaign. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful evening on this Labor Day.